So made. Plenty to discuss on this Thursday, January 19th. We want to welcome you to Fox Soul's Black Report. I am Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicordelai Corte. We are honored to stand behind this desk each day to take you on a journey across Black America and the stories that impact our people.
Yeah, we are dedicated to bringing you our news, our voice, and our views as well. We're going to get into today's top headline, an awful story out of Pontiac, Michigan. That's just outside of Detroit. A mom and her two young children are dead. Investigators say they froze to death. Their bodies were found this week after taking refuge in an overgrown field. Police identified the victims as 35-year-old Monica Kennedy, 9-year-old Kyle Milton, and 3-year-old Malik Milton. Officers say a 10-year-old girl named Lily survived. Authorities learned about the deaths when the girl knocked on a door and said her family was dead in a field. She is now hospitalized with hypothermia. Kennedy had an apartment but was suffering a mental health crisis that led to her to seek shelter outside. Now, according to police, she thought people were out to get her. Family members said she started acting differently about 3 weeks ago. They tried to help, but Kennedy fled with those children.
There's new details emerging in the case of a missing Texas woman who police believe went missing after learning that the man she was seeing was married. Fox 4 in Dallas has the story.
Tuesday, investigators were spotted searching a field across from missing 33-year-old Kayla Kelly's McKinney home. The pair went on to comb through a creek nearby and then a densely wooded private road. It's not confirmed the investigators were out looking for Kelly, but it's still a mystery where she may be. An arrest affidavit obtained by Fox 4 on Tuesday reveals an illicit affair between Kelly and Acosta Ferguson right before she disappeared. According to investigators, Kelly only recently found out Ferguson was married, and he never even told her his real name. January 11th, Kelly's friends and coworkers reported her missing to the Collin County Sheriff's Office after not hearing from her for several days. The next day, January 12th, Frisco police located Kelly's vehicle on a deserted county road in Frisco. According to investigators, the car had been burned beyond recognition, and the incident was not consistent with a natural fire. Deputies then went to Kelly's McKinney duplex for a welfare check. Kelly was not home, but her dog was, and it didn't have any food or water. Detectives then went through Kelly's phone records, pointing them to conversations with Acosta Ferguson, who went by the name Kevin Brown. They later found his Lexus parked near Kelly's home, and according to court records, a search warrant was conducted on the vehicle, and gloves, duct tape, and a blanket were inside. On January 13th, investigators showed up to Ferguson's workplace and they spoke to him. According to investigators, Ferguson admitted to knowing Kelly, and the last time he saw her was Tuesday, January 10th, when she dropped him off for work around noon. That statement matched evidence collected from cell phone records. Ferguson claimed his car was at Kelly's house because he was hiding it from his wife, and he allowed deputies to look through his phone. There, they saw text conversations where she threatened to tell his wife about the affair. Investigators say he also admitted he lied to Kelly about his name since they started dating last summer to keep from getting caught. Ferguson's wife was interviewed, and she told detectives she got a text message from an unknown number advising they needed to tell her something. She said she never responded, and when detectives asked to see her phone, it was broken. Monday, we visited the Grand Prairie home shared by Ferguson and his wife, but there was no answer. Eventually, investigators collected evidence placing Ferguson in the general area where Kelly's burned car was found, but he denied being in that area and wouldn't tell them where Kelly was. He was placed in custody, charged with kidnapping. His bond is $1 million.
Since the initial investigation began, police have discovered a woman's body in Grand Prairie, Texas. The remains will be taken to the medical examiner's office for identification and cause of death.
And to Ohio now, where 2 police officers are under investigation after a witness filmed a cop viciously punch a black woman in the face while making an arrest. Now, in the clip, 2 officers can be seen standing in front of their cruiser in a parking lot while moving to restrain the woman, identified by her attorneys as Latinka Hancock. At one point, Hancock appears to wave her hands around, and Officer Todd Stanley, seen on the right, punches her in the face multiple times until Hancock falls on the hood of the cruiser. The officers then hold Hancock against the car as Officer Tim Zellers handcuffs her. The officers have been placed on paid administrative leave while the department conducts an investigation.
A federal jury in Virginia found in favor of 2 police officers who were sued by a U.S. Army lieutenant after he was pepper sprayed, struck, and handcuffed during a traffic stop. Lieutenant Karen Nazario sued the 2 officers for $1 million after he was pepper sprayed, struck, and handcuffed in 2020. The jury in federal court in Richmond found that former Windsor police officer Joe Gutierrez liable for assault and awarded Nazario, get this, $2,685 in compensatory damages. According to attorneys on both sides of the case, the jury also awarded Nazario $1,000 in punitive damages. One of those officers is still on the force, but Gutierrez was fired in April 2021. The same month, Nazario filed his lawsuit. For folks to sue for $1.5 million and only be awarded less than $4,000, a lot of people would say that's probably a slap in the face.
I mean, when you take a look at the video, I mean, it's obvious, that there was excessive force, and, the fact that he was military, he had identified himself, was not at least honored and or considered. So I'm just wondering what the jury and or judge found not to be enough to compensate this man for the trouble, the mental anguish, the physical anguish, the embarrassment. I'm wondering what was provided in court where a jury and or judge would think that $2,600 would be enough to make good on this incident. I'm just really puzzled and confused about that, because when you look at that video, clearly those officers just disregarded what the lieutenant was trying to convey to them.
And what awful treatment towards a military officer in uniform,
Clearly.
And to make matters even worse, just going back to the Ohio story, the story of the officer punching a woman in the face. In what municipality is punching someone in the face a part of the training? So often when it comes to issues related to law enforcement's overuse of force, a lot of people say, well, we need to do better training. We need better training. So where exactly in the training does that include punching folks in the face as an act to subdue them?
We'll have to, stay close to this story, because I'm sure that young lady is going to definitely follow up legally in hopes of getting justice for what she had to go through. Just horrible, horrible video there. All right, we're going to move along here. The debt limit has been reached, but many say it's also an artificially imposed cap that lawmakers have increased roughly 80 times since the 1960s. The government can temporarily rely on accounting tweaks known as extraordinary measures to stay open. So any threats to the economy are several months away, but this time there are broad differences between President Biden and new House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Republicans want some spending concessions, while the president is insisting on a clean increase.
It's not going to negotiate about that, because again, it was done under the last president. It was done 3 times, again, in a bipartisan way.
If they want to play a game of chicken, we'll play a game of chicken. But we're going to do what's necessary to right this ship for the American people.
A prolonged default could be devastating, with crashing markets and panic-driven layoffs.
All right, soulmates, it's a new year, which means new scams. It's called the Frankenstein fraud. The Federal Reserve Bank's website illustrates how fraudsters pick a fictitious name with a stolen social security number and a made-up date of birth, adding in new contact information. In the end, you have Frankenstein, newly created identity. The bad guys try to make them seem more real by using this identity to apply for a phone number, a credit card, and more. Now this synthetic person has a credit history. And it gets deeper. Sometimes the fraudster gets a bunch of these Frankensteins, creates a shell company, then reports these fake identities to credit reporting agencies so that they can get good credit and steal money down the road.
All right, shifting gears here to some weather. The first time in nearly 2 years, a portion of California has been declared to be out of the drought. New drought maps were released by the U.S. Drought Monitor. In the top left corner of the state, there is a white square covering less than 1% of the state that's been declared to be completely out of the drought. You can compare the difference over just the last 2 weeks there on that map. Now, another improvement, there are no areas of the state in extreme or exceptional drought that were marked in red or dark red.
For the first time in history, the state of Maryland has its very first black governor. Wes Moore took the oath of office yesterday. The inauguration ceremony had some star power, with Oprah Winfrey among those in attendance. Governor Moore began the day walking from the Annapolis City Dock, where enslaved people once arrived in America. The governor pledged to address inequities in education and to work with businesses to grow Maryland's economy. That was a major to-do yesterday. Oprah Winfrey was among a lot of folks that attended that inauguration. A number of friends of ours also attended that inauguration. And it shouldn't be lost on our viewers that, there have not been very many black governors in the history of the United States. He's one of less than a handful of black folks that have ever been governor of any state before. This is his first elected office ever. And a lot of people are saying that the sky's the limit in terms of where Wes Moore might go from here. Yeah,
young guy, beautiful family. Just a wonderful celebration on the steps there at the Capitol. The weather held up. The family looked great. As a matter of fact, that walk to the Capitol looked very reminiscent of Obama and a young family from years ago. It was exciting to see. Who knew the relationship, the very deep relationship he and Oprah had. She's always in the mix of bringing us something new and fresh and different, like she did with Obama. And then they got down a little bit later and went somewhere and partied with having a lot of friends who are friends of friends. I saw a lot of clips across social media. I want to say Drew Hill was there. I know I saw Cisco, and they partied, rightfully so. A nice balance between the formality of what this means and just really celebrating everything that it means. So it was good to see that yesterday. Yeah, it was good to see that.
And also good to see a veteran, a military veteran, now becoming governor of a state. And so we'll continue to keep our eye on the work that is afoot in Maryland. We know that Wes Moore is trying to get the FBI to move their headquarters to Maryland as a boon to the economy there. And so we'll keep watching.
All right. So from Maryland to Florida, where the Department of Education has denied the approval of an advanced placement African American Studies course proposed by the College Board. On the College Board's website, a description of the course said it planned to introduce high school students to African American studies and include teachings on literature, geography, and other fields. Now, according to a timeline on the College Board website, the pilot of the African American Studies AP course launched this academic year in 60 schools across the U.S. In their letter to the College Board, the Florida Department of Education said, this is a quote, "As presented, the content of this course is inexplicably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value," end quote.
A school district in Oregon has quietly rescinded its ban on educators displaying symbols of the Black Lives Matter movement or gay pride following a court settlement with a teachers union. In 2021, the board banned school staff from displaying Black Lives Matter and gay pride symbols, then expanded the ban to all political or controversial signs after being advised the first rule wouldn't survive a legal challenge. The Newburgh School Board voted unanimously on January 10th to rescind the controversial policy, a month after the Newburgh Education Association announced it had settled its federal civil rights lawsuit over the matter.
Elementary school students in Florida were sent home with permission slips to learn the lyrics to James Weldon Johnson's "Lift Every Voice and Sing." and it didn't go over so well with some parents. A Marion County Schools spokesperson said students in grades 3 to 5 would be participating in learning the song to recite in a performance for Black History Month. The activity was labeled as an extracurricular activity, allowing students to participate in presenting historical facts regarding African Americans and or singing the Black National Anthem. Now, according to the school board member Eric Cummings, the lyrics, "We have come treading our path through the slaughtered," may have left some parents with unease. However, the school says the permission slip was meant to honor the wish of those against critical race theory, allowing them to have a say in what their kids learn. So we can learn the Star Spangled Banner. We can learn, you know, I went to a parochial school, so the Lord's Prayer. I can't tell you how many times we had to recite the rosary in regards to their policies and what they've laid out for us to learn and understand. The Pledge of Allegiance. So why such a problem when they are clearly stating that this is for Black History Month? You can choose to have your child not participate, but this is what we're going to do, and this is what we want to make you aware of. Here's the permission slip. I just don't understand why it's always such a problem when it has to do with color.
Yeah, and this is why what's happening in Florida is really happening. It really poses a serious threat across the nation. When we hear about, you know, these anti-Black history pieces of legislation sweeping the country, when we hear about these book bans sweeping the country, you know, don't say gay bills sweeping the country, you know, we're really robbing our kids from being able to learn their history, you know, and, you know, the Black National Anthem is a point of pride.
That's right.
You know, it's a point of pride. You know, it's just as American as anything else. You know, and so the fact that, you know, kids in Florida are being sent home with permission slips to learn the Black National Anthem. I mean, I don't remember ever receiving a permission slip to learn the national anthem or to learn about, you know, George Washington and how he owned slaves, to learn about Sally Hemings and her relationship to Thomas Jefferson. And so the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of history out there that may make people, you know, feel uncomfortable, you know, but truth telling makes people feel uncomfortable. And that's a part of what this movement, pushing back against these efforts to eliminate Black history, is part of what the movement is about.
Well, you first have to accept that our history, is America's history. I mean, you actually created our history here in America, and you got to accept that our history is America's history, point blank. All right, coming up, Bank of America is in hot water this week.
Why millions of customers say they're losing trust in the bank. You're watching FOXSOUL's Black Report. We'll be right back.